If you're listening to this, please don't play the game Invocation. My friend Danny received an email from an unknown game publisher called Exitium Games, and it allowed him early access to play their new game called Invocation. I told him to be careful downloading free games from unknown publishers because they could have a virus. But he said he had a VPN and solid antivirus software, so he wasn't worried about it. All he told me about the game is that he got a really bad headache when he started it, and he kept hearing voices he couldn't understand. The game started like a typical horror game. You avoid a monster and solve puzzles in an abandoned school, but then the game changed. Later on in the game, he went into a room and he wound up outside an apartment building. It was the apartment that him and his mum lived in when he was a kid before she died. He went up to their apartment and the door was open like it was waiting for him. He went into the living room and he saw his dead mum lying on the floor with a plastic bag over her head. He tried to delete the game, but it wouldn't let him. He even tried opening Task Manager to close it and the game wouldn't close. He shut his laptop and video called me immediately. Now, after telling me about the game, he went quiet. I saw a look in his eyes I never saw before. He was fucking terrified. He said that the thing on the floor wasn't his mum, it was something else. He said that the body stood up and it bent backwards. It pulled the plastic bag off and showed its face. He said its skin was like tar and its eyes were white. It had no nose and its face was upside down, smiling at him. I eventually got him to calm down, or so I thought. I went to bed and that night I had a nightmare. It was the worst nightmare I've ever had. Now, I don't usually get bothered by bad dreams, but this one felt real, and it felt like it would never end. Now, in my nightmare, I was in this old house, like a condemned 2-story house. It had this smell like strong cinnamon mixed with metal. The walls were covered in writing that I couldn't make out. Danny was in the house, and I tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. He just stood there still, staring down the hallway. He started walking, so I followed him. I followed Danny downstairs and into the basement. The smell was unbearable down there. He stopped in front of this massive furnace, and as I got closer to him, I heard this deep, awful voice. It was like a broken record repeating something that sounded like "finis to some." It didn't make much sense, but I got a terrible feeling from it. When I got about a couple of feet away from Danny, he slowly turned around. His face was upside down, smiling at me as he spoke the words "finis to some." Now, if anybody has any idea what that means, please let me know. I woke up feeling like there was a rock in my stomach. I tried to get a hold of Danny, but he wouldn't respond to my texts or calls. His dad called me crying yesterday, and he told me that Danny had jumped off the roof of their building. I asked him if Danny left a note or anything that said why he did it. His dad said he checked his room and his laptop, but he couldn't do anything on it because it was frozen. I know this sounds insane, and no one will probably believe me, but I think that game killed my friend. I'm not superstitious, I never believed in demons, but I think something evil is attached to that game. So please, if you get invited to play it, don't. This has been a story by Reddit user Love Flappy Foldy Holds.